Hi everyone, Daniel here, and today I will be talking about the HP Windows Mixed Reality head-mounted display. Yes, that is the official name of this product. It is essentially HP's first generation Windows Mixed Reality, or WMR for short, VR headset. And I wanted to share my experiences with WMR, this headset specifically, and VR in general over the past 2 years. I've had this headset since it came out in 2017, and let's get right into it with, of course, the specs. Specs are very important when it comes to VR headsets. So right up front, you get two LCD displays with 1440 by 1440 resolution, so you get a combined resolution of 2880 by 1440. You have a refresh rate of 90 Hertz and a field of view of 95 degrees. So at the time when this headset came out, it had a significantly higher resolution than the original Oculus Rift or the original HTC Vive. And these days, it can still stand with the newer headsets. It has a slightly higher resolution than the Oculus Rift S and a slightly lower resolution than headsets like the Valve Index and the newly announced HTC Cosmos. So when it comes to resolution, it's still pretty good. I would say that I notice some issues with clarity, especially when it comes to text, but they're certainly not that bad of a screen door effect. I know some people are more attuned to being able to see the screen door effect. It's something that doesn't bother me at all in this headset. And the field of view is certainly on the lower end though, at 95 degrees. You definitely get a bit of like a ski goggle effect. There is some noticeable black sides when it comes to field of view. I've recently used an HTC Vive Pro, and that has 110 degrees field of view, and that's even not doing a side-by-side comparison. As soon as I put on the Vive Pro, I could tell it was a big difference in field of view compared to my headset. But that being said, the field of view isn't so bad that it'll take you out of the experience. So when you're fully immersed, engaged in whatever game you're playing, the resolution and field of view is good enough in this headset that it doesn't detract from the experience at all. I would say that the only downside or possible negative with the pure visuals of this headset are the lenses. It of course uses Fresnel lenses like most other headsets, but the sweet spot in those lenses, so the area of which around the center is perfectly clear, is really small. And once you deviate from the sweet spot, it becomes blurry, and I'll get into later why that's compounded by other problems with this headset. But the only real negative, objective negative I could say with this headset is the sweet spot on the lenses is not that great. I wish the field of view was greater, of course, but I feel like it is certainly good enough. And next up, I would like to talk about the design and comfort of the headset. That's probably equally as important as to the visual experience with a VR headset. So while this headset was made and manufactured and designed to a point by HP, this headset, along with all the other launched WMR headsets from Lenovo, Dell, and Samsung, all came from a reference design from Microsoft. So that's why all of those headsets have a Halo head strap design. And while in theory and certainly in practice, a lot of other headsets, the Halo head strap design is very good and accommodating for many people. It's certainly a desirable aspect for the business environment because you can quickly take it off and pass it to someone else, and they can quickly adjust it for their own head size, which is of course why Microsoft would want to use the Halo head strap design. The design on this one specifically though is not very good. It's very clear that HP deviated the most from that original reference design. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's first start off in general what you're looking for out of a Halo head strap for a VR headset, or really any VR headset. So with the Halo head strap, it of course is going to rest on your forehead, the front part of it, and then the back part of it, you want to cup the back of your head. If you feel the back of your skull, you'll notice a natural divot, and you want any VR headset to cup that natural point. And what that will do is better distribute the weight of the VR headset so that it's not all on the front of your head, it's still supported at the back. So if you have all of the weight on the front of the headset, it'll drag down, it'll of course be heavy, it'll push down, and it will interfere with your nose as well. And so that's the problem with this HP headset. For some reason, the angle of the Halo head strap on this headset isn't great enough to naturally cup that rear point of your skull. It rests just above that. And so this causes two big problems. In order to keep the headset in place, to keep it from falling down my face, I have to get the headset really tight to the point that it is uncomfortable. And after about an hour of use, without any modifications of this headset, I start to get a headache. And it's not really possible to shift the headset around to a different point to make it to alleviate the pain on that specific point and try to move it to another point for a little while. Can't really do that because of the small sweet spot on the lenses. If you move the headset around too much, you lose the sweet spot on the lenses. So that's a pretty big downside to this headset. From what I understand, seeing other comments online, this is most likely the most uncomfortable of all the launch WMR headsets. It can be somewhat alleviated with mods. There's one big mod and one more minor mod that I made. You've probably noticed in some of my B-roll of me playing games already, I've got a big elastic Velcro strap that goes across the top of the headset. This will better distribute some of the weight to the top of my head rather than it being all on the front. And then I added some Velcro straps for the cable as well. I really like that HP has a detachable cable, but it's pretty heavy, and in a stock configuration, even though there is a clip for it to go up onto the head strap, it still comes down in front of you, and so that has a combined effect of getting in your way. And then of course, because it's so heavy, it tugs on the headset a little bit off to the side, and that's of course detrimental to the experience of using a VR headset. So I added some additional Velcro straps to get that cable to go more towards the back of the headset so that the weight is more centralized and it can go over my shoulder out of the way. And then that leads me into the controllers and tracking on this headset. So as I mentioned, the design is derivative from a Microsoft design. So all the launch headsets use the same controllers and the same tracking. The tracking is inside out tracking, which I personally believe is the future of VR and AR. It just makes it much more accessible and easier to use compared to external sensors looking at the headset and controllers. This is what many people consider to be the Achilles heel of WMR at the moment. It has two cameras that look out, and what it tracks has a limited bubble to what those cameras can see. So that includes both the world that you are playing in, the space that you're playing in, as well as the controllers. So the controllers in space can only be tracked when they're in view of the cameras. If the controllers go out of the view of the cameras, such as behind you, the orientation will still be known, but its position in space will not be. In my personal experience, the vast majority of the time, this works just fine. You may notice a little hiccup here and there, but if you're quickly putting your hand behind you to get, like, say, an arrow for a bow and arrow game, That works just fine most of the time. Super hot, I've had some weird things happen in super hot before, but again, mostly fine. So I don't feel it's that big of a problem. It certainly can be better, and if you're aware of the limited tracking abilities, you can work around it. I mean, people play Beat Saber on Expert Plus with WMR headsets just fine, so it's not that big of an issue. You of course have other headsets out there with more cameras now where they have a greater bubble for the controller tracking. I certainly hope to see that improved in the future, but I would think that the tracking on this is good enough for the vast majority of people. But something that isn't good enough for the vast majority of people are the controllers, which, let me just summarize by saying, are hot garbage. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here. So the controllers, in terms of buttons and available inputs, are just fine. They'll get the job done for any game, even if they don't support WMR natively. So you got a touch pad that's doubled as a directional pad, you got a thumbstick, you got a grip button, you got a trigger, and you have a couple menu buttons. So you can get around in games and interact just fine. But the ergonomics and build quality of controllers are just inexcusably terrible. So again, HP and the other manufacturers manufacture their own controllers, but they are from a reference design from Microsoft, so they were essentially made by Microsoft. And everything about these controllers, aside from working, is terrible. Ergonomics are awful. They're just a very straight controller, and there's a squared edge that goes right into your hand, so they're extremely uncomfortable to hold for long periods of time. The battery cover comes off very easily. You have to be careful when playing Beat Saber, otherwise the battery cover slips off. All of the buttons feel cheap and hollow, especially the thumbstick, which is just flat and shallow and just awful. I had to add thumbstick grips for the Nintendo Switch onto the thumbsticks to give it some amount of grip and shape to it, and just so bad. And don't get me started about the electronics in the controllers themselves. For some reason, some genius at Microsoft decided that these controllers would require 1.5 volts in order to function properly. But they only take 2 AA batteries. So either an alkaline AA battery or your typical Eneloop Amazon Basic rechargeable AA battery only operate at 1.2 volts. So that means not long after you put in fresh batteries or freshly recharged batteries, you will get a low battery warning. When you get a low battery warning on these controllers, you get reduced haptics, so the vibration essentially goes away, and the LED lights that the cameras use to track the controllers dim. So that makes possible hiccups in controller tracking crop up when you get a low battery warning. There is a way around this. You can get some lithium-ion AA batteries that do operate at 1.5 volts. Once I purchased some of those, my battery issues went away on these controllers, but it shouldn't be designed that way from the start. It should be expected that if you design these controllers with AA's, that people are just gonna take your normal 1.2 volt batteries off the shelf and throw them in there. And so they're not very comfortable to use, they're seen very cheaply made, and the electronics in them are poorly designed. And this coming from the company that has Xbox, they know how to make controllers, they know how to make high quality controllers in the Xbox Elite controller. So the fact that this also essentially came from Microsoft makes these controllers inexcusably terrible. Like I said, they function, they'll get the job done, but they are disappointing in every way imaginable. But I don't want to end on a sour note. So let's of course talk about how it is to actually use this headset, what it's like to be in VR. So like I previously mentioned, with a few mods, this headset can be made to be more comfortable for sure. When it comes to using Windows Mixed Reality as a whole, it's very simple and easy to set up. I love the fact that it's just one cable that I can plug in and I'm good to go. And then playing games is really easy. Not too long after Windows Mixed Reality launched, Microsoft updated the platform to support Steam VR games. So even if a game on Steam doesn't natively support Windows Mixed Reality, so long as it supports Steam headsets, so your Valve Index, your HTC Vives, so long as those are supported by the game, the headset will work just fine in those games, and I haven't had any issues in any games in terms of getting compatibility to work. And just playing VR, being in these environments is unlike any other game experience out there. It's nothing compared to your typical 2D first-person game. It's completely different. You feel like you're in these worlds and you can interact with objects in the environment. You feel like you're actually there. There have been multiple games and multiple environments that I've been in that I've just been completely awestruck at what I was experiencing. I felt like I was there and it was absolutely amazing. And then of course, I'm also big into driving games. I recently got a racing wheel in order to be more immersed in the driving simulators that I play. And in my opinion, if you're into driving simulators or flight simulators, if you've got a wheel, if you've got a HOTAS, you have to get a VR headset. The entire reason people like me play these driving games is to feel more immersed in the experience. And so a VR headset takes that to a completely new level. It's absolutely thrilling to feel like you're sitting in the cockpit of these cars, being able to look around at the environment and the other cars around you, being able to move your head to look at the track to better judge your turns. It's absolutely amazing. And the fact that these headsets, Windows Mixed Reality headsets, can be had for so cheap these days. The launch headsets came out 2 years ago now, so they have been effectively put into end of life. They're no longer manufactured. And support is could be not the greatest potentially on when you bought it. That being said, if you can find a fire sale on these headsets, many retailers are trying to dump their stock of these headsets. They usually go brand new for $150. That is absurdly cheap for a VR headset. Microsoft intended for these headsets to be an affordable way to get into VR. Many of them were $100 cheaper at least than other competitors at the time. These days, sure, the tracking doesn't stand up to something like the Oculus Rift S or probably the upcoming HTC Cosmos, but it's still good enough. I would consider the visual and tracking experience to still be good enough on these headsets. So for $150, you can get in on an absolutely game-changing, literally game-changing experience with VR. I wouldn't recommend the HP headset specifically. This is of course the first generation one. HP has a second gen or a 1.5 gen headset out there. The HP Reverb has a much higher resolution displays, but still the same controllers and same tracking. That's a very expensive headset. If you're looking to get in on VR and you want to get in cheap, don't have a lot of money, I would recommend looking for Lenovo's first generation headset. I believe it's called the Lenovo Explorer. That is considered by most to be the most comfortable of the launch headsets. If you're willing to spend a little bit more money, take a look at the Samsung Odyssey headsets, which are also pretty good. But that is about all I have to say about this HP VR headset and VR in general for now. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by giving this a thumbs up. If you are interested in seeing a significant comfort mod for this headset, hint hint, Vive Deluxe Audio Strap, be sure you're subscribed, as I will be doing that mod to this headset very soon. And as far as I know, it is possible to be done on all of the launch headsets. So again, subscribe to stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. If you want more VR content, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.